Hello, welcome to the instant reaction show on the blue side of the park. Myself, Ian Mills, and Gary Judge, as you can see, are joined by Everton legends, Mr. Joe Parkinson. We are reacting to the news that Rafael Benitez has been sacked by Everton Football Club today. We're all going to give our views on whether we think it was right or wrong. What's next? I think, Judge, you'll agree it's wrong for me and you to jump in ahead of an Everton legend, which thank you so much, Joe, for joining the show. What's your reaction initially to the news that Rafa's gone?
Well, I think it was, it had to happen. I was one of them when he was posted that, or he was, became our manager. I was one of them who was a little bit sceptical that maybe we could have gone round a different route. But let's give him the chance, and I think he's had that chance. I think it was never going to work hand on heart because of obviously the red side of things, but sort of the way we've been playing and the way the club looks as if it's being run just doesn't, even from the outside, doesn't look quite right.
No, I think I agree. I think for me, it's been a long time coming. I think Gary is a lot more patient than I am, and maybe a lot more reasonable. I think it possibly. I mean, I agree initially. I think it was the wrong appointment, but I think the fact that the first game of the season, when he was applauded onto the pitch before Southampton, I think that's shown that the majority were willing to give it a go. But Judge, where do you stand now? I think yesterday was unforgivable. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Like you say, Mills. Yeah, I've been a little bit more patient, and I guess been willing to give him that chance. Unlike a lot of the Evertonians, and listen, I'm not criticising the Evertonians for their initial reaction to him getting the job and for everything in between. But I was one of them who thought, I'm not sure what we're going to solve by quickly sacking another manager and going back to market in a market that isn't littered with strong candidates. But yesterday was just one too far. A poor side, Norwich, and it wasn't one of them freak results where we could have won by 5. They were comfortable most of the game. We had a few moments, but that's not a team that's for me behind the manager, or a team that is well organised, or a team that has got the proposition of picking up another 20 odd points, which is the biggest concern right now. So I think it was the right decision, and I guess it just opens up a big box now of what next.
Sorry, Gary, if I can interrupt there, but you look back on, was it September? Since September, no matter who the manager is, the results that we've had, it means they need to go, whoever it is really, and the performances have sort of warranted a sacking. Unfortunately, we don't want anybody sacked, but no matter who he is, and it's Rafa Benitez and he's ex-Liverpool, the results weren't good enough, and a sacking had to be done, and a change has to be made.
Yeah, I agree. Joe, just to stick with you, if you don't mind, was there a point for you that it became the fact that he had to go? Was it yesterday? If not, when was it?
I just think it's been gradual. Again, from the start, I thought, well, he's our manager now, so we've got to back him, and I think the majority of people did, and things were going fine. And like I just touched on then, the problem is our performance have been steadily getting worse. Results are obviously back that up. And, I still work at the club, but I don't get to hear many things. I hear the same things that you hear, that this isn't right, the Digne effect, just things didn't seem right. And I know he's mentioned that, it's probably problems from the last 5 years and he's trying to fix them, but unfortunately we weren't seeing any difference, and we can't wait, continuing the form we were until the end of the season, otherwise we'll be in the Championship. So unfortunately he had to go.
Yeah, I said something similar. Me and Gary done the instant match reaction after the Brighton game at the grounds, and look, 6 points from September to January, and then you go to Norwich, and you've got your best squad minus Alan. I'll give you Alan is going to be a miss, but there should have been enough there to get past Norwich. There should have been enough to beat Brighton. Should have been enough to beat Watford at home. Wolves away, even Hull to go into extra time against Hull, who were 19th. And no disrespect to any of these teams, but all clubs, it just wasn't working. And I don't know whether it's largely the players, because there's a core of these players who are seeing the managers off now, and I think a lot of Evertonians are starting to see through some of these players. Judgy, to bring you back in, the players aren't blameless for me. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, yeah. I don't want to go as far as to say, they're frauds, but some of them, like you say, have now seen off 4 managers, different managers as well, different structures. We've had a director, 2 directors of football that some of them have now seen come and go. We've had coaches, if you like, in the shape of Marco Silva. We've had managers / coaches in the shape of Koeman. We've had, proper authoritarian managers, if you like Allardyce and obviously Benitez, who's just gone. Loads of different styles of football and some players who haven't been consistent throughout that whole period. So whoever comes in next and whatever structure we go for next, they've got a big job on their hands because there's a lot of dead wood there. There's a lot of players who are not committed to this football club, who are not willing to roll the sleeves up when the going gets tough. Talk about character. There's a massive lack of that throughout the dressing room and leadership as well. One of our one and only leaders, if you like, Seamus Coleman, is coming towards the end of his career. He's struggling to pick out the captain apart from that. I think that the issues run deeper than just the manager. Like Joe said, the results speak for themselves, and it's always the manager who pays for that. And there's obviously a lot of other factors that go with Benitez, leaving the club today. But yeah, there's a lot for this club to kind of go through now in order to come out the other side.
That brings us on to the next point. But before we do move on, there's a lot of videos going around, a lot of social media content today, and people are really talking about the club. We're quite respectful that Joe has still got a relationship with the club. So myself and Judge, you're going to talk more about the decision to bring the manager in, the chairman's performance, the owner's performance. We're going to talk more about that on the weekly show this week. But Joe, there's a few names being linked now with the job. One of your ex-teammates, Big Duncan Ferguson, looks to be the favourite, at least on an interim basis. We're recording now at 4:10, so we don't know who is going to be the interim or the permanent manager. Names like Wayne Rooney being linked with it, Frank Lampard's being linked with it. Is there someone for you that you would be comfortable with at this point to maybe lead Everton on an interim basis?
On an interim, I think Duncan did a great job the last time. He signifies what the club is about and showing the passion from the side, which seemed to be instilled in the players, which I know Gary mentioned before, that the players are also to blame, and there doesn't seem to be that it matters. I'm sure it does, but they don't seem to show that. But so for me, Duncan was ideal with that, and the way he got us playing, the results speaks for itself. So interim basis, don't look any further than Duncan. At least I'm not sure whether he'd want it long term. Then that's something different. But to get us, I'd be pretty confident in get us safe and higher up in the table because he knows what it's all about. Long term, I really don't know. We're in a situation where who's available, are they experienced enough? We've been for experience, it's not worked. So should we go for someone who's not tried and tested? The Rooney, he's doing really well at the moment, but is that good enough for our club? The Lampards, I don't know where to go, and that's why I think when Benitez was appointed, it was one of them. Well, okay, then if that's the way we're going, let's go for it. Because I'm not sure what was out there. So yeah, that's going to be really, really difficult. But it's a massive, massive decision to make. It's got to be the right one this time, because otherwise we'll be staring about trying to stay in this league.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. The job someone's walking into now, when you look at the talk of the FFP, there's now no director of football. The medical departments apparently have been revamped under Benitez. He's taken a massive amount of staff with him. So he's been there 6 months, and there's been that much change in that 6 months that someone's going to come in now. We should really be in a position where someone's going to come into some sort of structure. It's going to be a coach with support. It's a massive, massive job. Judgy, is there anyone for you looking at the name so far who jumps out on an interim basis and a permanent basis for you?
I mean, the statement from the club was fairly. They almost seemed fairly adamant that we're going for a permanent, replacement. They didn't allude to any type of interim or caretaker manager. The wording was fairly explicit, saying that they'll be announcing a permanent replacement in due course. So that I think that speaks volumes for me. Whether that means that they've already spoke to a candidate or two, whether it's that Duncan himself has either ruled himself out of another caretaker role, or he said that he's thrown his his name in the hat for a permanent position. I don't know what that means, but I can only read into those words personally and think that they're not going to go for that interim approach and they're going to give someone, the permanent role, whether it is on a shorter contract. I mean, I look at it and I don't disagree at all with Joe. I think if you did give Duncan the reins for the rest of the season, I don't think we'd be concerned about staying in the league, because simply put, if you get those players that we've got in that squad motivated and playing, tactics aside, or regardless of tactics, I think they stay in the league, because there's good enough players there. If you put an 11 on the pitch, if they're all running around and motivated and doing the basics to get us points. But as we've all said now, I think there's a big long term. How many times have we said the word project over the last few years when a manager's been appointed? There is a big project there, so I think that's got to be considered when you appoint the next manager. Again, I agree with Joe. That was probably why I wasn't too averse to the Benitez appointment, because I'm thinking, all right, he's someone who has took on clubs before that have been in a bit of a mess. He's happy to work on a shoestring budget. That's another, you look at the candidates out there, the Lampards or whatever. Lampard's worked under that pressure at Chelsea, if you like, at a very big club with no money to spend. He's brought through young players. Okay, they didn't reach the heights that Tuchel ended up getting them, bringing them to in terms of the position in the league. But, it's got to be said that he's worked under that pressure. Wayne Rooney, wow, what a way to earn your stripes. He's worked at Derby there under ridiculous circumstances. Not only no money to spend, but a 20-odd point deduction, and they're on the verge of climbing out of the relegation zone. So, someone like him alongside Ferguson for a 1 year, you'd find very few Evertonians arguing with that. Between them, they've got the credentials. They know the club inside out. If it was that there was a little bit of money to spend, there's not going to be many players that are going to be put off by Wayne Rooney's name. We will attract players the same way that Steven Gerrard is attracting players at Villa. So can't be ruled out. Neither can Duncan. The others, you can't. I don't think many Evertonians can really put their hands on the heart and say that there's an outstanding candidate in the rest of them. I think Alan Myers was quoting like Rudy Garcia. He's never really done a good job anywhere, if we're going to be honest. Roma, I think it's Leon, yeah. A few other clubs. No, nothing outstanding though. He's had the odd qualification for Europa League and Champions League. I think he's got through the group stages once with a record low total with Roma. Not that we should be thinking for a minute about Champions League now, by the way, but he's someone again who's flitted around clubs but has never really done a proper solid job anywhere. Graham Potter, obviously up and coming manager, great. He's done a really good job so far at Brighton. If he wants to come and bring Davy Weir with him, that brings maybe a bit of an Everton flavour to it and some young ambition. So loads of options out there, and it's almost a minefield, isn't it? You're damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't.
Absolutely. Joe, I do want you to close this out in a moment, if you don't mind, with your final thoughts. But before that, Judge, I've indicated there that me and you are going to talk a lot more about the situation at the club in general, and the problems at the club on this week's Across the Park podcast. But just very quickly, do you think this week that Everton need to come up with some sort of communication, whether it be a video or even if it's not Farhad Moshiri, but you think some sort of communication needs to happen now because of what's been and gone? I mean, there's lots of fans who resisted the manager. Look what's happened. It ended in fans running onto the pitch at Norwich trying to get him. It's been a terrible, terrible decision to appoint this man. Is now this week a good chance of some communication finally from the top?
There's never a better time than the present. I suspect that might come. I mean, you only have to look at, 4-6 weeks ago that Marcel Brands went now, and he went after, again, a lot of fan pressure for someone on the board's head to roll. Then Marcel Brands goes. Obviously, the Everton fans at Norwich, couldn't be any more aggressive in terms of their feelings towards not only the manager, the board. Benitez is gone. You would expect that some kind of reaction from the board comes now, whether it's in the shape of another appointment, whether they use Graham Sharp as this person that bridges the gap between the fans and tries to improve that communication. There's been a rumour of Dave Prentice coming in as head of communications, something like that. But you're right that the communication from the board and the message to the fans couldn't be any more important now. I mean, me and Joe spoke about it when we previewed the Merseyside derby, which we're not going to speak about that, but we spoke about the importance of the fans just getting behind the team and the importance of that relationship between the team and the fans, and the fact that that's been missing for so long. Whatever the board do now, whatever the appointment is, whatever the communication is, that's got to be the priority. Is building that relationship again with the fans, because it's never been, as poor, as it is now. In my memory, anyway, I can't remember a time. Probably not since,
that's Alan Myers didn't we communicating under Roberto Martinez, and that was the last time really that I felt that we had that transparency. I feel decisions are made now, and again we'll get into this a lot more in the week. Joe, just to sign us out, when you look back at this last 6 months or so, this relationship between Everton Football Club and Rafael Benitez, how do you view it? What are your final thoughts on the whole thing?
Well, it was a strange appointment. There's just no doubt in that, and I don't think the chairman or whoever decided it realised what it meant to the rest of the Everton family. Really, if we were, sitting in the top four, there's still a lot of people out there wouldn't want him there, even though the success could have been there. So he was always on a downer for me, and I just hope the board or whoever makes them decisions realises that, and I think it has been a mistake. It's not worked. They take into account, what the club means to Evertonians. Listen, football clubs mean the best to all their fans. I get that, but to appoint someone, from the other side of the city just doesn't work here, and I don't think it ever would do. So they've got to realise that the next decision is obviously football-wise, but also the fans and the club, what it means. Make sure they get that decision right, and let's go forward. Really, I think we always know. We spoke about the fans. They will get behind that next manager as long as it is a positive appointment, really, and we can see where it's going. Where I don't think Benitez was one where it was ever going to be, a long term, really, if that's the right way of saying it.
Yeah. I think that's a great place to leave it. It's Sunday afternoon. There's a real time for reflection to Evertonians right now. There's a massive chance for someone to come in and get this right, which is what we all want. I think it takes the fans and the club to be as one, which we've not been, for rightly or wrongly, we've not been for the past few months. It's a big decision coming up in Everton Football Club's history and future today. But Judgy, me, you'll catch up tomorrow. But the legendary Joe Parkinson, thank you so much for joining us on the Across the Park podcast to discuss it. Guys, thanks for watching. Please hit subscribe in the button below. Myself and Judgy are back this week, unfortunately, with a couple of reds. We'll see you there.